Cool, man. Also, I like the fucking bestial warlust shirt as well. Do you say that was an original print?
Yeah, it's from 1997. I mean, the album came out, I think, 95, 94. But what I'm saying is even on the tag, it says Modern Invasion Music, the Australian label that released it, released the first two Destroyer 666 albums, released the first Anatomy, the only Anatomy album, released a few other things. From mostly everything was from Australia. But the most recent version, the most recent re-release of the album is from Hell's Headbangers. Pretty recent history. And they also did some T-shirt reprints. Yeah.
That's right. And did you actually get that from Australia, or did you have it imported or something back in the day?
No, not Hell's. I think I just ordered it from Relapse when they were cool. All right, if you're recording that, I probably shouldn't. Relapse when they actually had more variety of music than just, bands that all sound like Black Sabbath,
Right, I got you.
Yeah, long time ago. Yeah.
I see.
No, I've never, really, I haven't been overseas. I have, but not as much as I wish I did. And I was actually born in America, not Iran.
Okay.
I was born in 78. And then, since you're recording this, I have to be careful what I say. But we know what happened to Iran in 79.
That's correct. Well, actually, I did, you've just mentioned that, and I did actually want to start the podcast by asking you about your history with Iran. So you were actually born in America to Iranian parents, I presume.
Yeah. My parents came in 76. The two countries still had, at the time, very good relations. I think that was
correct.
One of the issues that the Iranian population had, and I think it definitely was one of the issues the Iranian populace had with Shah Reza Pahlavi at the time, being a puppet of America and such. Obviously, I wasn't alive, nor was I there for that reason. So, I'm sure there's a lot of truth to their grievances at the time. So they came to America in 76 as exchange students with the intent to return to Iran. Unfortunately, I was born in 78. In 1979, it was probably not the best time from anybody outside of Iran to return, particularly from America.
Yeah,
so
of course.
They had to very hurried and impromptu start a whole new life across the planet. And, so I live in the States, and there is the immigration to the States is a huge issue. I try to stay as apolitical as I can, and a little background on that, and I'll explain why I'm going to bring up immigration to the States and how it relates to me. I try to stay apolitical. Every now and then I'll have, if the issue obviously involves me, my family, anybody that I choose to or have to care about, I might care about that issue. But I mean, especially in the States, I think it's a Western phenomenon in general. Politics, liberal versus conservative in particular, it's almost like you can't be in the middle. If you're in the middle, you're not enough of one or the other, so you get shunned and shamed for that. You have to blindly adhere to either the left or the right's doctrine and not budge. Otherwise, the team on either side will shame you to no end, threaten you with violence. It's absolutely deplorable and disgusting behavior. So to me, it seems like in the West, and it probably is civilization-wide, I'm just going to go with what I immediately experienced. It seems like politics have replaced religion here. People get very, very aggressive, even to the point of violence over Trump versus anti-Trump. It's
the issue to me seems to be that there seems to be no gray areas anymore. It seems to be that. Yeah, it seems to be that everything is already set in place for people to just choose a side, and that you can't think for yourself anymore. Like free thinking just completely went out the fucking window as far as I'm concerned. So right. I hear you completely on that.
Yeah. So And obviously, as your life changes, as you become older, as you become a business or a property owner, as you have a family you need to raise, you may swing one way or another, more or less. I hope to, whatever is up there, that a person, whatever you identify as, also is not the same person, for example, in their 40s as they were in their 20s. I mean, hopefully you've had a lot different life experiences, both good and bad. You need to mature, you need to grow, but your politics can swing one way or another based on many factors throughout your life. But yeah, in the West, it seems like politics has replaced religion. People get very, the whole social media shaming somebody because they said something. They told you no. They told you, hey, you are wrong. Shaming somebody on social media, threatening their business, their establishment, threatening their family, their life. It's just ridiculous now. Like, I'm not going to, mention my politics. It's just, I'd rather not on this public forum, period. But I do, I do go a little bit both ways for whatever the heck reason. I'm on certain aspects of life, of society, of where civilization is that I see. But I'm always ready and willing to listen to anybody's opinion. And I don't get emotional over it. I just like, okay, because it's a basic human right. First of all, if we want to, in America, give people a hard time for if they voted for, if they supported Trump, well, okay, why did we as an American society even enable this guy, this television celebrity who has no previous legal, governmental, or even military experience, as far as I know? Why do we let this guy be on the ballot? What does that say about us as a society in America to enable somebody on the ballot like that anyway? So I think if you're mad about that, we need to all be mad at ourselves. We're like, why have we come to this, to where any sort of clown with more money than he knows what to do with can get on the ballot? And whatever happened at the election, if you think it was fraud, okay, that's not what I'm trying to bring up. I'm bringing up, if you're mad about who's in the White House, well, and you look at their credentials and you go, my God, all they do is they have money and they got it however they got it, cutthroats, whatever. We let people like that get on the ballot. We can only be mad at ourselves. So you cannot be mad at your neighbor for choosing to have taken a political path that just doesn't agree with you. It's like, well, that's their right. Number one, they have every right to be, I guess, stupid. Why not? Let them. Just leave them be. But hey, if we're going to enable just anybody on the ballot as it is, we can only blame ourselves. This should not have been a thing from the get-go. So what I'm trying to say is, okay, back to immigration and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With my family. In America, there is a huge battle on both sides emotional will, about a lot of people coming from the southern border with Mexico. And it's not only people from that country coming over. It's just the border is so long, people from all over the world, allegedly, and I don't know, nor do I care so much, because I would rather worry about my own livelihood. People from that country crossing over, and they say, oh, where are they going to live? Where are they going to work? They're going to cause more traffic. They're going to cause longer. They're just going to use more and more resources, anything from just cluttering up the traffic to taking more of the clean water. Okay. But with something like that, it's a lot easier for somebody from a Western civilization country, a Christian country, a country that writes in the Latin alphabet. It's very easy to go from English to Spanish, Spanish to English. But my parents, having come from across the world, from a 99% Islamic country, a language that has a different alphabet that writes from right to left, you can only imagine the shock and awe that they had to deal with trying to assimilate this country versus somebody simply crossing from across the border. Same religion, similar enough culture, different enough culture. And then, of course, a Latin-based alphabet, which, I'm not saying they're all easy to learn, but they're a lot easier to learn than, the Semitic scripts. Absolutely they are. So
well, I can relate to that in the sense that, because obviously when I was over in Iran, I did actually find myself very incompatible with the culture there, yet it was something that I had grown up with. So moving to the United Kingdom, even though it was something that I deeply wanted at heart, I couldn't wait to come and be a part of a free culture and society where I could express, most importantly, my music freely. I came here for music. I came here for heavy metal. You know, one of the reasons why I went to fucking Birmingham, of all places, is because Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Napalm Death, Benediction, Bolt Thrower, even I think their Coventry is like right next to it, you know, and that was, you know, that was one of the biggest reasons why I ended up in that place. But even then, the cultural shock and actually understanding people, and obviously, admittedly, I did come over at a young age, you know, and I still had a lot of development that I still probably needed to do before I made the move. But in a way, I'm happy that I had those developments over here. But it did obviously come at a price, you know, and it was difficult just trying to understand people and trying to understand how everyone even thinks. It was kind of one of them things, you know, like it was like jumping in the fucking deep end, you know, culturally, socially, on all aspects of it, speaking, you know. So I do appreciate what you're saying, that there is certainly a culture shock. I think from both sides, to be honest with you, you know, it's not just the person visiting a new country, but rather the people who are already in that country. They almost have to adapt to this new person as well, you know. And then I don't think I'm necessarily the best representation of an Iranian person because I have. Yeah, yeah, you know, I don't think neither of us are, you know, which is probably why what makes this conversation interesting.
Well,
But yeah, I think that exists both sides.
yeah, when you look at, you know, the predominantly overwhelmingly Islamic countries, I mean, I'm not going to talk about the ethnicities, or if you want to get technical, the race. You know, there are I mean, a misconception in the West, as we know, is that almost all Muslims are Arabs and almost all Arabs are Muslims. I mean,
Sure.
no, that may be the majority if you did a head count, or if you did, you know, counts by number of countries. But from what I understand, the most populous Muslim countries are Indonesia, Pakistan, even India, and then, you know, I think, I'm not certain, but, you know, Egypt is the most Egypt is the most populous Arab country, but there are countries that are non-Arab that have significantly higher populations of Muslims over the main Arab country. But with Islam, what is unique is their religion and the culture are so tied together. I mean, everything from
Yeah.
government policies in a lot of countries. I mean, Iran is a theocracy. So, I mean, it is, the politics and religion have no difference whatsoever, as far as I understand, not having actually lived there. But, you know, it's common textbook knowledge. And then because with Islam, the culture permeates so much into the politics, and also the Friday prayers, where the whole country stops to pray. The diets, you know, the halal diets, you know, so and then of course the banking system in Islam is
Hmm.
unique, Western, possibly also Asian banking system. So when you go somewhere in the West, especially, you know, not every country in the West, obviously, a lot of them are still reeling from post-communism. You know, they were kind of set back for about 2 generations. But you look at what, I hate to have to say this, but it is just a perception. Some of the more, I don't know if I ever want to say advanced, but the more leadership type Western countries, Great Britain, France, United States, you know, maybe Australia, in that region of the world, they try to stay very, very secular. You know, I mean, you are not supposed to mention religion in the public forums really at all. It can get violent. But like I said, now that politics have become religion, it's almost scary that, you know, it looks like that politics in the West are replacing religion, but without any central figure, without a Muhammad, without a Jesus, without a Moses, Abraham, without a figurehead prophet almost. Or maybe to some people that is Trump, or that is, the woke Hollywood, maybe.
Well, to the point that you were trying to make, how do you think that this relates to your own personal issue of immigration and coming over and actually being someone who was raised in the United States by immigrant parents?
Well, because I was extremely small, I was born in 78. The relations with Iran and the U.S. went to complete hell in 79. I mean, slowly but surely, and then obviously the hostage crisis was a huge narrative at that time. I was 1 year old, but I mean, thankfully with this device that I'm speaking to you with now, you could travel back in time really and look at anything. There was tremendous anti-Iranian sentiment in America over the hostage taking. I mean, over the actions of, a large group of mostly students in Iran. There was huge resentment, bitterness, and threats of violence against the Iranian community in America, no matter how long they had already been in this country. From what I understand, from what my father tells me, and keep in mind, where I was born and where we stayed until my 4th birthday was Oxford, Mississippi, a beautiful, amazing small college town in the south of the United States. But, the south of the United States does have, especially in a lot of the rural areas, does have a lot of stereotypes. I mean, the cities are amazing. The cities are beautiful, a lot of history, very modern, progressive, very forward-thinking in the cities. But if you go to some areas that, are just a few square miles, there are stereotypes for a reason. My father tells me that in some instances, and then obviously with people's emotions here and all, people looking like this, like you and me, still to this day, it's infrequent because I just think societies move forward. But you do get asked, hey, where are you from? Or my favorite, hey, what are you? What am I? What are you? Or what am I?
I hate that question.
It's like I'm a human being. What are you? Are you?
And I hate it because I don't relate to the people of the place that I come from. You know what I mean? I sound different. Everyone always asks me, it's like, oh, where's your accent from? Are you from America? I'm like, no. But then it's like, I feel hesitant about giving them an answer because I want them to judge me by the person that I am rather than the preconceived notion of the place that I come from. Not that I'm ashamed of the place that I come from, but it's because I simply just don't fucking relate to it. I don't relate to a lot of the things there. I want people to understand I'm someone who respects and values freedom. And in a first impression, that is really difficult to put across.
Sometimes you just want to answer the questions, like I sometimes, like as an example of what is going on right now, I have a few Russian acquaintances. The last thing I want to do is ask them about what's going on right now. They don't want to talk about that shit. They don't. I mean, I asked one person, all I did was go, hey, is your family okay? He said, yes. I went, okay, thanks. But I'm not going to ask about Putin, about the pretense behind, I guess you should call it an invasion, the whole thing going on there. It's like, I don't understand their culture. I very much respect it. It's a beautiful culture, but it is not my culture. I'm not going to pretend because I read some Google, some Wikipedia, I watched some YouTube. Suddenly I'm a geopolitical, Eastern Europe expert, I would rather just leave people who, if their culture, if their country is in a current upheaval, just leave them alone. No, they've already been asked every 5 feet on the streets. They don't want to think about it any more than they already have. I'm not going to be a catalyst for putting stress upon them. What I was trying to say about what was going on with the hostage situation, the bloody revolution, the, death to America being chanted on TV sets, news broadcasts all around 1979 is my father told me that at that time, in certain instances when we, because we're in a new country, so obviously we want to see it, we don't want to stay in the same small town we're living in. So, we had a vehicle and we would go all over, particularly the South. But in some situations, my father would have to lie and say we were Arab, not Iranian, which nowadays in some places, even that may not be good to say. Who knows?
I mean, that surprises me that being an Arab is better than being an Iranian, right? Maybe I speak from a biased standpoint. I don't know.
Of course. I understand what you're saying, but at that time, for the safety of your family, him having a newborn child, my father, somebody, I don't know, at a convenience store, at a gas pump, would say, "Hey, what are you?" He'd have to go, "Oh, we're Arab," at that time, because he just felt it was safer, and it would just, maybe the people had, well, I know the Arab oil embargo was 75. It was definitely before the revolution of Iran.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There probably was a lot of anti-Arab sentiment, in this country at the time, because of that was the first time, other than now, that was the first time gas prices in this country had been at their highest. And I have seen pictures online of long, long lines for gas. And you had to wait in that line because that line was going to be like that all day and night. So there was no, I'll just come back later when the line is shorter. No, everybody in this country with a vehicle had to pump gas when they had to pump gas, because you don't know if there was going to be any left. You don't know if the price was going to, skyrocket even more. So you waited in that line during the Arab OPEC oil embargo, which I want to say was because of Western support for Israel. And that's a whole, if you want to touch that subject, you're more than welcome to, but I really am just like, how long has it been? Over 60 years, and neither team, who both claim lineage from Abraham, who both say they're children of Abraham. So it seems like they're related based on their, their doctrines. It's like, you guys are related in as many ways as you are different. And it's been well over 60 years. You cannot find a solution to your concerns. Seriously? And there may be
the situation with the petrol that you mentioned, that sounds like history is just repeating itself at the moment, isn't it?
Well, the issue with the petrol is that, sadly, the countries that control the majority of the production of petrol are very crooked and corrupt. They are run by some pretty awful people who really only look out for their family and friends, don't even care about their own people that they have power over, let alone the people across the world they're shipping the petrol to. So we're so dependent on oil from very crooked countries. I'm not going to mention any, but it's nothing most educated and aware people don't already know. So a lot of I'm just going to say America, because that's obviously my immediate concern. It'd be nice. I know it's not going to be overnight. It's not, you snap your fingers and there's the solution. It would be a very long, very drawn out and tiresome process. But America needs to slowly but surely get away from its dependence on foreign oil. And this is a narrative I've been hearing pretty much my entire life here. It's like, okay, can we at least maybe start? And then maybe in my lifetime, the solution can be found. Everybody wants to, all issues, there's a big anti-capitalist emotion against, especially amongst much younger Gen Z in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, you guys were not alive during the heyday of communism when half the world was under communism. Lenin himself even said, I think it was Lenin, the end goal of socialism is communism. So, half the world was already communist for about 2 generations. Well, all of those countries changed, and they changed for a reason. Now, I'm aware that there are definitely certain ills and lots and lots of corruption within capitalism. And I'm not going to sit here on this Zoom call and pretend like I have the solution to society. But I think a hybrid model, possibly, but does neither side blindly, simply capitalism, simply socialism, is ideal. Maybe a hybrid model, but then the issue is, especially in this country, when you are this big, you span across 2 oceans, you have more people than you ever will need to have in this country, and it's only going to grow in numbers. Even with socialism, how would you get everybody on the same page? I went to medical school, I deserve more. I have a lot of trades and skills, I deserve more. Or, you know,
Well, I
I
think
have,
that as far as that sort of topic is concerned, I'm very intrigued by this. I'm always checking both sides, and like you said, I find flaws, but also some good points in both sides as well. However, one of the things that I have witnessed, particularly at least from observing the debates on the matter from both sides, is that the ones that are more for, I mean, I don't know how to word this the best possible way, but a lot of the people who are like extreme, like pro communism almost, a lot of those people are people who live in comfort. A lot of those are people who have everything that they fucking want at the palm of their hand,
yeah,
and then they think they perhaps sometimes don't always appreciate what it has taken for them to be where they are at the moment, to even be allowed to have those kind of thoughts and ideas. So sometimes an over sort of accessibility of abundance seems to actually cause more fucking problems in a sense.
especially with what's going on now in Russia, Ukraine, which there are several reasons. It's not as oversimplified as, oh, you know, Putin bad, Putin big bully. I mean, okay, sure, but it goes way beyond that, especially in a culture that in two countries that share a lot of history and a lot of culture. It's not just, you know, Putin just flexing his muscles. You know, it's part of it. You could also argue that, you know, communism ended over there just a generation ago. I remember when it was active, and when it ended, I was an early teenager. So you could make an argument that one possible angle of what is the unfortunate situation over there is still fresh from the woes that communism caused over there, you know, because otherwise, why isn't there peace and prosperity? You know, if this was only 30-ish years ago, I think exactly 30 years ago, you know, that's not that long, you know, only like one or two generations of children, you know, one or two birthing cycles of children could have happened.
It's when Metallica played Monsters of Rock, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes, that was, yeah. I remember, you know, I didn't see it live, but I remember seeing footage after it happened. You couldn't really see too much live at that time, especially if it was across the world, especially in those countries, especially anywhere across the world. You know, you just had a few channels, a few networks. But
so
yeah,
I want to ask you something as well. Sorry, I interrupted you there, but I'm very curious because since we've actually entered this realm of the conversation, and obviously I do want to speak more about Iran and Iran's background, you know, how the fuck we even got to where we are at the moment. Since we are actually on the issue of, since we're on the issue of communism versus capitalism and all that, what are your thoughts on a guy like Dr. Mossad? And for people who are unaware, Mossad was a guy who, I believe in the 50s, he was running for prime minister. And then out of nowhere, he came out and then he was like, okay, why the fuck did the British have access to Iranian oil? And then he basically, they tried to do some negotiations. It didn't work out. So then he cut the hands of the British having access to Iranian oil. And then I spoke about this briefly on the previous podcast, actually, but I'm very keen to talk to you about this. And then basically there was a coup. But the MI6 and CIA, you know, they all co-inspired. You know, they were like, okay, this guy's dangerous. He's moving very much towards a socialist kind of mindset, and he's getting closer to the ways of the Soviet. And this was at the height of fears of the Cold War as well. So a lot of that was happening. But in the end, obviously, they managed to kind of manipulate the social the social mind, obviously. And at the time we didn't have social media or anything like that, you know. So if word spread through word of mouth and it was one thing, you know, it was difficult to change that narrative, I think. And you know, and in the end he ended up basically going into house arrest, and then he just died alone, you know. But it's the fact that he did want the good of the Iranian people, and he was doing some good for the country. However, he was an extreme socialist as well. So that's why I wanted to know your thoughts on a guy like Mossad.
So, from what I understand, and I have looked into it obviously I still interact with a lot of people who were alive when that happened, when the Mossad situation, was at its peak, and then his unfortunate, I'm going to say unfortunate because of how it happened.
Sure.
It happened externally, like you said, MI6, CIA, his unfortunate downfall, and then his miserable life under house arrest. My parents were both really small, apparently, when that happened. I don't know that they have a strong opinion either way. Yes, because they were small, and because, ultimately his time as prime minister was so short.
What do you mean when you say the word small? What's your exact definition of that?
And my parents were alive during the Mossadegh incident, but they were children. So they didn't really
too young to understand it, basically.
Yeah, sure. they living in Iran. My father's from Borujer, my mother's from Shiraz.
Okay.
They were living during the whole, starting from Mossadegh all the way until, right before, a couple of years before the revolution. The fact that Mossadegh was, from what I understand, well liked by a large swath of the population, and then suddenly he was taken out by external forces. I don't even care that they were American, British, possibly French. They were just from outside, not from within. I know that created a lot of resentment amongst the Iranian population, and was one of the, the big anti-Shah Reza Pahlavi tenets. And most revolutions at that time, I guess they still do. I mean, there's always, there's a cold civil war in this country. Most revolutions start at the university level, young, impressionable, fresh new adults, still impressionable. Here comes somebody with a bunch of pieces of paper gilded frames hanging on their wall. Possibly they have money, they have some status, and they're brainwashing these kids. Either way, I don't care whether they're brainwashing them left or right. I don't care. But the fact of the matter is these children who are still impressionable by anybody with some kind of social, political, financial status, they just listen to anybody who they perceive as cool.
Mm-hmm.
That has a lot to do with how the fabric of a society changes. And then, of course, with Khomeini promising this and that to the Iranian people, to fix a lot of their ills and woes at that time. And then a lot of his sermons, a lot of his speeches were circulated through audio cassettes, while he was exiled in, I think at the time, his ultimate final exile before returning was France, because, he came down the runway on an Air France passenger plane. That photo was, I think it's the pilot escorting him down the steps.
It's a famous picture, where it's this. Yeah.
It was the beginning of the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose you could say that.
Yeah, I don't. A subject like that, I know, is very sensitive to a lot of people, and I do need to. I can allude to and hint at certain things, but I do. You and me both. I mean, anybody Iranian, if you're going to say something on something like this that's going to circulate on platforms that everybody has access to, you really need to be, if you have family there or here, you really need to be careful what you say.
Yeah, but the point is that me and you are speaking about this not from even, at least personally speaking, even though we're metalheads and even though our likes of people are kind of shunned, I suppose, I'm still not speaking of this from a point of view of even opinion-based. This is purely analytical, and we have... Sure. We're talking about history as it happened, and by far neither of us has actually expressed any opinions of that. And actually, you know what? To that point, I wanted to ask you this: have you actually been to Iran at any point?
From what I understand, so I was about 1 year old. Obviously, my family, my parents. Majority of my family is still there. There are a few relatives in pockets of America. And there is a few in Europe, but 99% of both my father and mother's side are still in Iran. Almost everybody now is in Tehran. It seems like Tehran just in recent history became even larger and even more crowded. So
it has done. Yeah.
When I say Shiraz and Borujer, there's not a whole lot. There are still relatives there, but everybody evidently poured into Tehran. When I went, I was 1 year old, and I want to say, and I think this is correct, because if you think about the situation at the time, it makes sense. I think I went during the brief stint that Shapur Bakhtiar had over there. So,
okay.
what they call when the Shah left, that brief moment of peace, and very short-lived peace and tranquility, and perceived prosperity, that they call the Gola Maruf, which English speakers won't really. I don't even know how it translates, but I guess so-called Gola Maruf, so-called Bahara Azad, the springtime of freedom. The Shah went to exile in Egypt with his family. The Iranian people celebrated, poured in the streets, prosperity, alas. Yeah, sure. But they called it Bahara Azad, the springtime of freedom.
Yeah. I wasn't around at that time, but obviously I know the traditions, and I know the days.
That Bahara Azad was when I went as a 1 year old to Iran. I don't remember
right.
how my parents go. Every time that they have gone, they've gone either separately or together. They go for about a month. So I would say I was probably there about a month in 1979 before, the armories got raided and, the street fighting started.
Yeah, it did go kind of tits up afterwards. And then it seemed to carry on a turmoil for a long time, and then there was such a massive cultural shift. I mean, people... I recommend everyone, whether you're Iranian or not. I don't think the podcast even has many Iranian listeners, to be honest, but I recommend everyone to go and actually check out Iran's history and how the country shifted and transferred post 1978, 79. It's fucking crazy. It's like, like in a lot of ways, at least culturally speaking, I mean, I said this, a lot of my friends and people close to me, and including myself, we used to say this when I used to live there, that when that happened, it's like culturally we went back in time by like 40, 50 years or something, because it was crazy. But I mean, I look at that with a slightly more fresh view now than I do back then, because I have a better understanding of what it takes to actually run a fucking country, and obviously what happened there was kind of like I look at Iran as a massive backfire, to the West fucking around with shit that, that they're not supposed to, that's like, it's an entire country that's like, this is exactly what it is. But what? Sorry, go on, man.
This is a not what you and me are talking about, because you and me, have a lot of shared experiences, but with not, everybody else, not Iranian, whether it's in a public or private setting, a conversation that's recurred with me regarding the culture quite a bit is, I mean, a lot of people, and, for many right reasons, a lot of people are under the perception that women in Iran are second-class citizens, very oppressed, and that it has always been that way. But you have to tell them, like, no. Only from 1979 onward have they been this level of compromise. If you look at old pictures, old, not really no video, but film footage of, the public squares of Iran prior to 1979, and there's almost no difference whatsoever than how women walked around and carried themselves and their attitudes
in Hollywood.
I mean, and I guess this is how I have to preface things nowadays. Not identifying as a woman, I identify as a man. Okay.
Thanks for the clarification. I've never thought.
I know. I didn't. Out of respect for, the and here's another thing. I try to be very, very respectful. Like, if you want me to address you a certain way, but my eyes tell me a different story, but you tell me to address you a certain way, I will. Out of respect. I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm not trying to, again, you have to worry about what's going to go on social media and possibly get you killed these days. Not alone lose your job, lose your house, lose your life. You have this. Unfortunately, you do have to think this way these days. if however anybody wants me to address them, and no matter what, if it's a word I've never heard, if it's just a word they opened up a can of alphabet soup and made up, okay, much respect to you. Let's just try to get along. So anyway,
that's a weird one. I don't know if it's worth getting into that topic. As far as I'm concerned, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can be whoever you want to be. I do actually very much believe in the importance of someone finding their own identity within the world, because then it allows you to take the actions that you take accordingly, and have a purpose behind them. However, to what degree do I have to be a part of the validation that other people need to have for their own identity? That's a different story.
Some governments, from what I understand, thankfully I don't live under any such, regime, but there are some Western governments now that are making it punishable if you incorrectly address somebody. So it's like, okay, it's one thing if you're punished in the public level, amongst your peers, amongst your coworkers. I mean, okay, just follow their wishes, follow the company's policy, but when you're punished by the government, I mean, fines, jail time for that.
I don't know. It seems like a very counterproductive and very just a waste of resources, waste of human thinking and human mind. It's like Varg Vikernes walking around and demanding everyone to call him Count Grishnach. It's like everyone's going to be like, fuck off. No one cares. But then that's I don't know. That's at least how I see it. Or me walking around, telling everyone to call me whatever the fuck, call me like fucking Prince of Persia, the biggest dick on the planet, And if you don't call me that, I'm gonna fucking get you fired from your job. I think that's fucking ridiculous. Like I said, I'm all for people expressing their identity, learning who they are. I think that is extremely important, and I understand that, but to what extent everyone else has to be a part of it, I don't know if that's entirely necessary, and then to the point that if you're a normal, like, normal, whatever, whatever the fuck normal even is, but if you're like a normal male, then you're like almost like a fucking outcast and a reprobate. It's like, that just seems like someone intentionally inserted some kind of cancer into society, and this was done by design just to fuck with people. And obviously, most very good-hearted people actually tend to fall for this kind of thing as well, but at least that's the way I see it,
It's unfortunate how much this culture war, is embedded in the fibers of Western society. I just tell, I try to, as much as possible, unless I happen to feel really strong about an issue, and that generally has to do with it affects me, my family, or any of my closest friends, anybody that I choose to / have to care about. I've ended several conversations before they started. I go, I'm not a bitter, miserable person, man. I don't sit there and dwell on politics, dwell on shit that I cannot change as one person. What am I going to do? Change it with the power of my thumbs and my Twitter account? Come on, man. I'm like, no. Yeah, I focus on success. I focus on my personal happiness. I focus on, money, investments, exercise, fitness, martial arts, and just what makes me happy. I'm not going to sit there and especially on, be a hashtag hero trying to make change in the world. It's like, I'm one person. It's just an iPhone with a Twitter account. I'd rather focus on my hobbies, my pursuits, my success, than, just showing strangers on the internet how miserable of a creature I am, because of either actual legitimate or perceived injustices. That, any injustice is an injustice. Of course, we need to look at our past, especially in America, there's a large history of it. We do need to look at our past, acknowledge, if it was a horrible thing, that it was horrible. Tell ourselves never again. We'll never allow, at the time, amongst the population, it sounded like a good idea, is why they did what they did. But, looking back, as we have advanced and become more educated, I guess that's the correct word, maybe not. But we can look back and be, okay, this was a horrible thing. Very good that it ended. Let's never let it happen again, especially on our turf. And, if it happens anywhere else in the world, let's see how we can solve the issue as well. Any injustice, but my God, to sit there 24 hours obsessing over just, this and that and showing your misery. I'm like, you could be, making money some kind of way, or just doing anything that makes you happy that is a little more productive than just, elevating your blood pressure so damn much 24 hours a day, and shaming other people. Oh, you don't agree with me? You don't see the world through my lens? You must be killed, or you must be homeless, or you must be jobless.
No, I think civil discourse is an extremely important thing in today's world, and that's something that we need. But you know what? To your point as well, I can completely get behind that. And you know what? Like you mentioned about changing the world, I think that the best way you can actually change the world and improve it is actually by fucking being yourself and focusing on your own success and focusing on what you're doing. There's a really good saying. It's kind of like one of them like success quotes, but it has a very valid point to it, which applies to all different facets of life. I can certainly relate to it being someone who is in a music band, where even though our scene is very small in comparison, there's still tight competition. You know what I mean? And the saying is that if you want to have the tallest building, do so by building the tallest building, not knocking down the ones around you. You know what I mean? And I think that is fucking great, and ever since I've embraced that sort of mentality, I find that I am seeing more abundance in general and more positive changes that are then reflecting back at me, whether it's through my own actions or through other people who then come and get in touch and say, you had this effect on me just by posting that one picture there. And then I'm like, wow, I didn't even try to do that. I was just being myself, yet it's all coming back to me in a positive way. So I can appreciate that positive mindset 100% and actually being productive rather than just sitting down and wallowing in stress and sorrow and shit like that. I don't think that's a useful way of existing. It's a waste of time. It's very, completely.
Like I said, don't knock down the other buildings. Yeah, very much, eyes on your own paper. Don't, just don't be so predatory. Don't be such a jackal, and just, what are you doing going into people's Twitter accounts from 2010 and be like, see what they said? See what they said? It's time to die. It's like, why are you that human being? Why are you that person?
How have you got the time to do that? If you were like focusing on yourself and improving yourself, you wouldn't have the time to do that.
Why is your brain that brain? Why does your brain go that way instead of why do you even think to be predatory like that? It's just, it's almost, I'm like, you had nothing better, bigger to do with your time and energy than how am I going to ruin this Oscar host's life? I mean, yeah.
Exactly. Well, obviously, just changing the subject a little bit here as well, but in the middle of the talking that we did, you mentioned about self-improvement, and obviously in that you included going to the gym and and that sort of thing. So I was just wondering, what's your relationship with that? How did you get into that, and what made you want to get into an aspect of embracing physical challenge?
Well, especially, as a teenage boy in the early mid 1990s, at the time, gigantic Coke bottle glasses. My father, I think most of his adult life, he gravitated around 160 pounds. He does. He's still with us, thank Ahura. But my father's all 50 pounds, which you could perceive would reflect upon me as well. So, not being tall either, a lot of insecurity had to do with, I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, it started at 14 years old, being very insecure, not being very confident, not feeling very attractive. So, it started with weight training. Obviously when you first start, you make a lot of mistakes. You're like, more is better. If I work biceps 2 hours, 3 times a week, it's better. No, actually the reverse is true. So it started with weight training, and then that turned into like bodybuilding style weight training. Also a lot of powerlifting. Never competed in powerlifting, but powerlifting style training. Obviously the 3 power lifts and heavy weights, low reps on those for several years. Now I don't do any of those, any of the power lifts. I just I did them for, I'll say, 20 some years. I'm not going to lie. I just am kind of too lazy now to load up that many plates, unload that many plates. You know, when you get to the heavy, whatever you perceive as heavyweight, you, me, guy, girl, whatever in between, young, old, experienced, not experienced, you know, you do, like, for example, squats, deadlifts. You're like, oh, wow, I've been at this squat rack for, 30 minutes. I've only done 5 sets because, I'm taking such long rests when the weights get to 300 plus pounds. It's like, yeah, this just isn't fun anymore. So, I'll do, obviously.
I don't know, man. I gotta jump in there just for a moment as well, because it's like, this is my thing. But it's like, I mean, first of all, it's good because you are doing something. I always say, doing something is better than not doing anything at all. But I also don't think that there's such a thing as being lazy. I just think it's all a matter of decision. If you decide that you want to do that, then you fucking got it in you to do it, or at least to try. You know what I mean? I think it's all a matter of decision. If you decide you want to fucking dedicate time to do it, then you do it. Being lazy, to me, it's I don't know. I don't like that word in my vocabulary.
It may not be a word, but and it's not that I'm obviously at the gym 7 days a week. It's not lazy in general. It's I'm my mind, my mentality, my set of values does no longer want to spend 30, 45 minutes just squatting, and then I have to do the auxiliary leg exercise. You know what I'm saying? It's like in the amount of time it would take me to just finish my squat sequence, I could have finished leg day altogether. I could have simply done leg press, leg extension, leg curl, stiff-legged deadlifts, exited the gym, 30, 45 minutes. But, it's 30, 45 minutes. I'm like, okay, now only squats are done. Moving on to leg press now. Oh, that takes time and energy too, because it's a very compound movement that engages practically every muscle below the waist. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, instead of being there an hour and a half, nowadays I'm still training what I call heavy, what I call hard, but I can do chest and back, that entire section in less than 45 minutes, and just hit it hard and intense. And whatever I call hard or intense, or everybody's perception, everybody's values, everybody's output is different. And like you said, some work is better, or I don't know if you said it verbatim like this, but you alluded to some work is better than no work. And that's what I tell that's what I tell a lot of new faces, a lot of new people at the gym who might ask me questions. I say, as long as you're here, I get it. It's tired. You're an adult. You're tired. It's hard. Working's hard. Owning a home, if that's what you do, raising children, if that's, it's all hard. We're all tired. Okay, that's life. That's being an adult. You're here. A body in motion stays in motion. Even if you don't want to go 110% balls to the wall today, put in some work, stimulate some muscle, fatigue, fatigue the muscle to your best way, stimulate some growth, some cardiovascular output, whatever it is you're trying, whatever activity you're doing. What is nice, especially in America, it may hold true for a lot of Western countries, is there is, and you could probably argue that this is thanks to social media. Everybody's a superstar on their smartphone. But the fitness culture, the exercise culture I remember a time only weirdos went to the gym. Like, gyms were perceived as only the freaks, the, legitimate weirdos. The dregs of society went to gyms. Now, everybody young, old, in between, every walk of life goes to gyms. And that's great. It's great that you have, cheap entry price points, gyms on every corner now. Everybody's out there getting active in some kind of, it doesn't have to be what I carry. It doesn't have to be bodybuilding, martial arts, none of that, but the fact that they're active, they're, improving their health, their confidence, their well-being. I very, very much appreciate that. And I tell a lot of people, I'm like, I am, as a trainer myself, I do encourage a lot of people, oh, I'm tired. I don't feel like if I'm just texting them, talk to them on the phone. Oh, I'm too tired to go to the gym. Look, yeah, life's tiring. Working, it's makes you tired. Yeah. But
just do something, it's the decision making. You decide that that's what you want to have in your life. Yeah. You want to have that kind of fucking output. And honestly, I had this discussion with Darko, a friend of mine from Serbia, that on episode 4 of the podcast. And it's a physiological process that you just cannot go wrong with it. Like going to the gym will always make that better. You mentioned that there's more people of all ages, of whatever, just going. I think that is fucking great. I think it's something that everyone should do. And why do I say that? Because I think that it allows you to improve yourself, so that self-improvement actually becomes a part of your life. Because I know some people don't give a fuck about like what they're doing, or they're just existing and, consuming air and food and resources without any kind of purpose or anything, and I think that this is always one step that you should take and add to your life, because once you do that, then you start to look at everything else differently. You start to see that there are possibilities of improvement within you that allow you to become a better person. Because this is another thing as well. Just having that little bit of physical exertion, I mean, you mentioned about going to the gym for like fucking an hour and a half, like 2 hours or whatever. I personally rarely go any longer than an hour myself. Oddly enough, I actually did a leg session just before we started this podcast, so I'm glad I'm sat down. It's going to be a pain in the ass when I try to stand up after this. But the thing that I'm saying is that for me personally, the benefits of it are 90% mental.
Yes.
The 10% is what I then see in the mirror. And then how I feel when I'm just like moving around or like doing anything, or even if you're having sex, you just feel so much better because it's like, fuck, I feel like I'm in really good shape. But 90% of it is mental, because it allows you to deal with your shit through discipline and hard work.
You definitely, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to, sometimes you have to ride a fine line with encouraging someone to go to the gym. I have to preface it with, if like, for example, it's late afternoon, when the gyms tend to be peak gym time for most of civilization. And I'm talking to somebody over the phone, texting, I'm so tired to go to the gym. Oh, okay. I understand, and I'm not saying I would like for you to go. It has nothing to do with your body or physique. There's nothing wrong with your physique at all. But you should go just to elevate your mood, because, there is a mental health epidemic in civilization now. Go to the gym. It's not a magic bullet. It's not going to solve all your mental health woes. Just going to the gym. It's not getting those concerns are not going to be solved overnight.
But it would help.
Start. Yeah, it's a good step in the right direction. I tell people, just go to, feel better, get the endorphins, get the adrenaline, get the serotonin. Just go, and, even if your output is not 110%, that's okay. There's always tomorrow. You have the rest of your life. Just go to the gym just to elevate your mood, elevate your confidence. Turn this awful day you had at work around by just, 30, 45 minutes in the gym, doing whatever the fuck you want. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you punch the heavy bag, if you step on the elliptical, if you do leg day for the 7th day in a row. I really don't care unless you ask me for advice. But
I think it's the same for not just men, but women as well. This absolutely includes and involves everyone. Go and lift some fucking weights. You'll thank me for it. And me and Michael, you'll feel a lot fucking better later on. Trust.
Yeah. Any female friends that I have, and then, whether they have gone to the gym before we were friends, or they started going, when we had our, we knew each other. And then, every now and then they'll, be overwhelmed by, generally female life concerns. And I'll say, well, you should go to the gym. And it's not about your physique. Let's not even broach that subject. I promise. Just go, and hopefully you'll have a better day afterward. Your spirits will be lifted. You'll go home. You'll be able to sleep better. My perception was that you were going to have a sleepless night due to overwhelming stress. Just go and try to turn your day around, even if only temporary. It can't hurt. What's the harm?
Because what's the best thing that you can get out of it, and then from that mental benefactor which we were speaking of, it's that it will undoubtedly improve your confidence. Because there's a lot of people out there, who are, I've met a lot of girls, not even in the pursuit of anything. Generally, like, I've met them. I'm always very observant of people I'm interested in.
You wander on the streets, you meet people. Has nothing to do with you. And I when somebody, in a conversation like us, especially at our age, when we've been adults longer than we haven't been, when somebody talks about interactions with the opposite sex, like, I generally just think something completely friendship, something just business, work related. I never go to any negative. So I completely understand and I co-sign what you're saying. So just go ahead, with complete confidence that I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, of course. I know that you do. I'm mostly clarifying for anyone else listening, but I think, I appreciate what you're saying there, man. And the thing of it is that there's a lot of people who might genetically or naturally be really fucking good looking, but they still might not know their place. They're either, I don't know. It's in the way that you carry yourself. So someone might be, if you look at their picture, they might be physically attractive, but then when you see them in person, it's a bit like, and that's because of body language. It's because of how you carry yourself, and I do genuinely think that if you go to the gym, if you start lifting weights, if you start applying that kind of physical exertion, you will carry yourself better because you've put in the hard work. You've won the battle against yourself. And when you've won the battle against yourself, then nothing else is going to fucking get to you, so you're going to have way more confidence. I'm like that now, like so much of my insecurities about even as an artist and a performer have pretty much, they've not maybe entirely diminished. I'm sure that they're still probably there to some extent, but generally how I carry myself on stage, I don't feel afraid to ask a crowd to start fucking chanting and screaming for me if that's what I feel like needs to happen at that moment, because I've gone over my shit first. So I've dealt with myself first, and now I feel it's appropriate to try and project that, and try and ask others of something, or just to create a movement. You know what I mean? This is maybe not an example everyone can relate to, but honestly, I'll make an example here. I've seen both men and women at the gym, and I know this sounds a little tough. Okay, I'm sure everyone is beautiful in their own way, but perhaps genetically speaking, some of them aren't very, they're not the best looking. However, because they do put in the work, because they fucking do the hard work, they do the reps, they show up for themselves, they carry themselves with confidence. And honestly, nothing is more attractive than legit confidence that is earned and not just birth given.
Absolutely. Well, a common thing I hear a lot is a lot of people don't like going to the gym at particular times of days. I mean, I get that, it's more crowded, of course. That's never fun. Just having to park across the planet and walk, that's not fun. But they will say it more as if, the gym is crowded and they think that they're being judged. They think that they're being looked at, or they go to the gym alone. They need to at least have one, if not more than one friend in tow with them. And I'm like, listen, I understand what you're saying. I respect what you're saying, but everybody else in the gym that you might think is fit, is better than you. And I hate to say that, but whatever their perception is, do you think that these people are judging you? I'm like, look, they all started somewhere. They all started at the very grassroots level, inexperienced, not very well conditioned, not very strong, whatever the situation is. But they all started somewhere too. And I promise you, majority of the people there are so self-absorbed and in their own head, they're not looking at nor are they thinking about you. So there's no reason why you need to compromise yourself, your life, your health, your fitness in general, because you are concerned, you are afraid of the opinions of others, within the gym. Just go live your life. Just go, or there are people that will say, oh, I only want to go in this area where the machines are. I don't want to go into the free weights area because that area is scary because of the people. I'm like, I mean, I understand if you don't, free weights are skilled or learn skill, how to move them right, how to move them safely, how to move them with proper technique to stimulate benefit for the muscle groups. But I mean, you could hire a trainer. You have so many resources on your smartphone now. Even ideally, you have somebody present watching you, correcting you, being not literally hands on, but hands on as far as presence with you. I understand that costs money. That's a little extra premium, but
those are just the technicalities, though. It's just a matter of, as I keep coming back to, it's a matter of making a decision and then just applying yourself, and that's it.
Don't live so much in fear, especially out of fear of, other people's, you're trying to read their mind and wonder what's going on in their head when you think they're even looking at you, which they may not be. It's like, don't concern to yourself. I mean, again, with the politics, like just focus on yourself, your own success, your own, your immediate family, or, whomever you yourself, and only you yourself can decide whoever else truly matters in your life. Don't strangers, well-wishers, just random acquaintances that you don't need to invest too much thought in. Don't, meet them on the equal playing field, meet the energy with the same energy. If they're not checking in on you on the smartphone, on the social media, or, in public when you see them, they're not engaging you, even with hi, bye. Why is that on your shoulders to make them matter anymore? No, meet them on the same 50-50 equality is equality, right? There it is.
And this is the thing. Yeah, man. And this is the thing, like there's a deeper psychological thing to that, I believe, which I think applies to some actually more primal aspects of life in general. It's that obviously when you go to the gym, you're constantly thinking of what is everyone else thinking of me. But think of it like this. What if everyone thinks, what does everyone else thinks of me? And no one actually really gives a shit about you. Yeah. Right? And think of this in the context of a social media format as well. I'm very grateful that I realized this some time ago, that whatever people think of you, it's a reflection of themselves. I even thought this as a child. Now, there may be exceptions, but as a child, one of the epiphanies that I had when attending a family member's funeral, I think I was like 9-10 years old, was that people are upset, but I had at the time, my thought process was that people get upset because this reminds them that they will one day die. And that, they never, very rarely might they actually feel sorry directly for the person who is gone, but rather what they could have done more with that person themselves. Oh, so yeah, in the end, everyone thinks only about themselves anyway. So whatever it is that you trigger in people by your actions, by your general presence, it is a reflection of that person themselves, and this is, again, I'm going back to what we talked about earlier on in the podcast, where we said that the best thing that you can do is just try and be the best version of yourself. And you never know how that's going to have an impact on someone else. I mean, we're talking about the gym and on the more mundane stuff. When I first went to the gym, I was extremely overweight. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was too terrified to go near the weights. But I just kept showing up. And at one point, I was only going once a week just to do full body, like for 2 hours. And I had no fucking idea how to even train properly. But I still kept going. I kept going. I made it a part of my lifestyle, even though people around me were actually becoming uncomfortable with the fact that I was dedicating myself to it so much. And now I'm at a point where the mental clarity that I have is fucking unreal. Like, I can make decisions. As a man, the capability of making decisions is an extremely important thing. And for me, obviously, there's a multitude of factors that has played into that has allowed me to be like that. However, I think that the physical improvement and the challenges that I've set for myself in a gym environment have been extremely crucial in making that happen. So yeah, you just can't fucking go wrong with it, man.
No, yeah, it's really disheartening, and I don't know the person's background and or how they grew up, but and all I can do is just encourage with the power of my words. But I understand why you might be intimidated, why you might be afraid to enter the gym, let alone enter certain areas of the gym. I understand that, but you have to start somewhere. Just like everybody else here that you might tell yourself is better than you right now, they all started somewhere. And usually, I mean, unfortunately, it's not 100% all the time the case, but usually people, I'll just use you and I as the convenient examples because we're having a conversation. People like you and I, I have to because it's my job. But even if I'm at a gym where I don't work, if I'm at a gym in another city, for example, and if somebody, politely asks me for any kind of advice, any kind of guidance, I gladly give it to them. I mean, first of all, I'm extremely flattered that this stranger approached a stranger, and is humble enough, modest enough to ask, hey, can you show me how to properly barbell curl? I'm honored and flattered overwhelmingly to engage this person and give them advice. So I'm like, wow, okay, I'm happy that you have the humility to ask somebody, approach somebody and ask them for advice. You didn't just go on one of the social medias and just mimic and ape somebody with a bazillion followers. Like, that's not how you do this. I take pride and I enjoy helping and guiding people, because to succeed at anything really, I don't care what line of work, what hobby, craft, what, a sex act, for example, my goodness, to be successful at anything, you have to like it first. How are you going to be good at anything how are you going to be good at, jujitsu if you don't enjoy it? How does that even make sense? So, if you really enjoy whatever pursuit you have, cryptocurrency, chances are you're probably going to be successful at it because you've dedicated a lot of time, energy, mental capacity in mastering it. And, you can make maybe a career out of it. You can maybe make some kind of side hustle out of it. So
well, I think it's also important to understand that, though. You said the word enjoyment. I think that's a bit of a tricky one because sometimes you also need to understand and appreciate that doesn't have to be instantaneous. Sometimes you might just be planting a seed, and planting the seed at the time might not feel like you're really doing anything interesting, or it might feel like a fucking drag, but then down the line you'll see the results. The Persian saying, "Qatra qatra jam gardad darya shavad." Drop by drop gathers and becomes an ocean, and that is exactly how you fucking apply yourself, man.
Yeah, or I mean, the one of the I guess cliches that they say in English also is Rome was not built in a day.
Precisely.
So it's like, I think a lot of the way we are now, and you can probably put some of the blame, quite a bit of the blame, if I had to say so myself, on smartphones and social medias. Everybody wants instant gratification, instant results. People seem, they want it right away, get validated by strangers all over the world, get the likes, get the comments, get told they're beautiful, they're this, they're that. It's like heroin now, it's like oxygen, it's like food. There's so much instant gratification in seeing immediate results. Oh, this picture only got 5 likes. Now I'm no, seriously. The volume of likes you get now is like some type of bizarre social currency now. And that's not how I grew up. But I guess
currency is a great way to put that, because it's like that same part of our brain that we apply to business and things that are actually productive. We then apply to social media, and then it's like, well, there are things to learn from it as well, from a social aspect of it allows you to understand what people actually give a fuck about, but to then allow that to really dictate your expression, I think is fucking bullshit. You know what I mean? That's just what I mean.
People definitely put too much value in the approval and the validation of others, like to where it dictates their day, their month. It's like, and, obviously a lot of people have their biases, I have a very, very strong kind of axiom that I live by, and I make damn sure I tell a lot of men how I interact with at the gym, that just kind of look up to me, show me proper respect. I tell them this. I tell them, you make rules for who you want and you break rules for who you want, because that's just, especially after 2020, when we saw pretty much all of civilization go psychopath, everybody lost their fucking mind. And then we look back 2 years later, we're like, why did we, what over that? That made us. I mean, I that's probably, that's a very sensitive subject, I'm sure, for a lot of people. And I'm very sympathetic, but at the same time, I think that the way that the media, I mean, if you want to say it was about politics, you're probably not very wrong. But the way that the media, the celebrities just went off the deep end with that thing and made it, you had celebrities like we're doing, celebrities shouting into the, stay the fuck home, stay the fuck home. You stepping out on the porch, you're going to kill my grandma. It's like, you're probably going to kill your grandma more than me, dude. Or she's going to kill your fucking nutcase. But
that was really unfortunate. And the thing is as well that I understand where a lot of those people are coming from, and this is a subject that any person that you talk to about, well, actually not every person, but let's say the people who are on the side of what you just made an example of, everyone is almost like, have you seen how many people have died? Someone close to me died. And, I got it, and I was nearly fucking dead. Well, it's like, listen, look at it like this.
I mean,
you have to understand. What were you saying? Sorry, you had someone.
People can say, people like you were. I'm agreeing with you. So someone close to me died. Yes, it happened to probably everybody on the planet. They lost one, if not a few people that they kind of, if not very much, cared about. But. Okay, where do you draw the line somewhere? I mean, this is one thing, especially going back to the gyms, that I wish would have happened instead of, oh my God, if you go to the gym, you're going to spread it and you're going to, we're all going to die. It's like, I think the message, Mr. Politician, Mr. Mrs. in between, politician, celebrity, Hollywood personality, you need to tell people, okay, hey, there's this new threat out there we don't understand, we're not sure about. Be safe, be careful. But you know what? Instead of saying, oh, if you go to the gym, it's like a death trap, you should be like, oh, hey, time for some lifestyle changes, everybody. Stop smoking cigarettes. Cut down. I'm not going to tell everybody not to drink, but, change your alcohol drinking habits, maybe reduce it a little bit. Get out there and get fucking active. Change your diet.
100%. Yeah.
Get healthy, not quarantine healthy people. Why do you and me need to be quarantined? We are the least likely to get sick. And if we get sick, we're going to be the fastest to recover. And if I get sick, I will do my due diligence and I will stay home and I will make sure I am all clear before I go back out in the public sphere.
But this is the thing. But here's a problem here, okay? You would think it's as simple as that, but it is not. And this is the biggest fucking problem that I've had with this whole thing for the last 2 years. And this is probably the first I'm talking about it publicly. There's a mindset that we had at a time before this. And to the point that I was trying to make about people saying that someone close to them has died. First off, I have had close relatives pass away because of it. And by close relatives, I genuinely mean that. I mean people who, it caused a massive blow to my entire family because those people passed away because of this fucking virus. On the other hand, I myself have had it. I've had it 3 times. The first time I had it, it absolutely fucked me up, and I was on my ass, and I still have lingering effects from it. Okay, point 2 made. Now, I'm going to point back to, let's say, I think was it 2017. Well, we had this happen in 2015, in I think 17, where there were terrorist attacks in Europe, okay, which included United Kingdom. I think in 2017, you had the fucking bombing of Manchester Arena during an Ariana Grande show, which was extremely unfortunate, very fucking sad. I feel I get filled with a lot of emotions when I think of these kind of fucking events. But there's one thing that was about it that was beautiful. What was that? People's response to it. People saying that we are not going to let these terrorist fucks let us stop enjoying life. That we are still going to continue attending shows regardless of these kind of actions, even though we know that there's a possibility that they could happen, you know. And look, this was even at the back of my own mind as well. I know this might be somewhat irrational to think, you know, but if you think about it, I'm a guy from the born and raised in the Islamic Republic of Iran, and now I'm over here playing fucking satanic black metal to the masses.
Yeah.
I would always presume that there's a big fucking chance that could happen at one of our shows too, just purely because, you know, you never fucking know. But here's what I'm trying to get to. What happened to the mentality of people saying that we are going to actually continue enjoying life regardless of the fears that could be there? And as far as I'm concerned, those terror attacks are far more fucking terrifying and threatening than what we've just fucking dealt with for the last 2 years. Yes, of course, people have died. It is a real thing. I'm not one of those fucking mongoloids who goes around saying that this is not real. However,
the panic and hysteria was absolutely I mean, my God, you had stories of people snitching on their neighbor because they had more than 5 vehicles in their front yard. It's like, oh, you know, you're all related. You all shared the damn near the same identical DNA code. You've been, you know, family members for your entire life. But if I see that you have a head count of 11 people at your house, I am snitching to the police. You know, you snitch to the police on me like that. I have 6 hollow point bullets waiting for your skull. You know, you do not, what you think you're going to get a reward or you're going to get some social media points for snitching. It's like, no, eyes in your own goddamn paper. Let these people live their lives, you know. And I mean, it's the hysteria got so. I mean, let me tell you something too about how you were going. You know, you're stepping a little bit back in time. This and that. This and that. I remember. It's almost comedy. It's almost theater. How 2020 mimicked the early mid 1980s when I was a small boy, and I remember the panic around AIDS. You know, it was just everything. Sure. Oh, my goodness. No public toilets, no swimming pools, no dentists, no mosquito bites.
At the time, you used to think that you can catch AIDS just from being in the same room as someone who had it, correct?
Stories of elementary school kids. An elementary school child, however he got it, I mean, it's none of my business how he got it, but got HIV, and out of panic, parents are pulling their children out of schools. I mean, or the whole, you know, backlash at the time, thankfully short-lived, and it was absolutely heinous and disgusting. The entire backlash that was short-lived against homosexuals, you know, against gays. I was like, you know, and what do I think? I'm 7 years old. You know, I don't know any better. You know, I'm just like, okay, well, clearly, you know, if you're gay, you get AIDS. But thankfully, we debunked that, you know, as you know, I think it took a few supposedly non-homosexual famous people to get it and die, to where, oh, wait a minute, this can affect anybody, you know. And then I understand that when something is new, you know, the panic sets in, and, you know, you have to take all that, you know, just stay home and watch Tiger King, you know. But at the same time, it's like, okay, once you start to get even the smallest shreds of evidence that, hey, wait a minute, this whole hysteria is extremely overblown and unnecessary. It's like, okay, guys, enough's enough. Time to move on. Life's too short. I have, you know, things I want to go do. You want me to mask? I will mask. That's fine. You want me to get a vaccine? I mean, I'm not going to make any politics behind any of these decisions, but if the majority consensus is you need me to have a mask on for you to stand in the fucking elevator next to me, or you need me to have a vaccine passport to, you know, go see Trevax play, It's like, okay, if that's the minimal you need me to do, that's what I'll do. If you have these mandates that hopefully are only temporary, you can't keep this going forever. If you have temporary mandates that you need all of society to be on board with for us to start functioning again, that's fine. I agree.
Well, actually, I'm on a slightly different thing. I didn't partake in any of that because I think that the more we think that this sort of thing is okay, that the more we think that okay, because it's like this. Even with the mask fucking thing, every person knows it doesn't fucking that does fuck all. You know what I mean? And I'm speaking of like as far as like even the politicization of it goes, even the people who are like super like pro mask, pro whatever, even those people, I've spoken to them, and then after a little bit of reasoning, it always comes down to this, right? Yeah, it doesn't really work, but I just wear it out of courtesy for others. Well, others are thinking exactly the same as you, that they're wearing it out of courtesy for you. So if neither of you need to fucking wear it, then why is this such a big fucking deal?
You're wrong about it. And, if you're telling me you didn't participate in any of that, my brain in particular goes, okay, that's Shayan's right. I have no right myself whatsoever to shame and to guilt you if you or anybody on the streets is going to tell me I refuse to mask, I refuse to get vaccinated. Okay, I'm not, or I voted for Trump. These are your rights.
Absolutely.
Once rights away from these people, the whole concept of, I don't even want to say democracy, the whole concept of a civilized world falls apart. You have every right. I'm just gonna take it to an extreme. You have every right to be an asshole, scumbag, all you want. You have every right to be a bigot all you want. That's your right. Doesn't mean I'm going to interact with you. Doesn't mean I'm going to invite you to my home. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to, make you lose your job and live on the streets. I am simply going to run my own goddamn business, keep distance from you, and just be you be in your own world. You're going to people like that. They'll fuck themselves in the end. They'll alienate themselves. Who's going to hire them? Who's going to, marry them? Who's going to, socialize with them? You have every right to be as much of a perceived asshole as you want, and just go live in your own little hole and see how much you don't prosper in life and how much you alienate and isolate yourself from everybody else. That's your right. Why would I take that from you?
And the saddest fucking thing about it is that people have been so caught up in this whole thing, and I'm speaking of people who, for as long as I've known them, they've been all about, pro-choice, you do what works for you, let's give rights to these group of people. And whatever the fuck my own beliefs are, I am exactly of the same thing as yourself, where it's like every person deserves to think and decide for themselves. And as far as we came to understand, like you mentioned about the AIDS thing and how a lot of things were debunked, well, there's a lot of things about this situation that are currently debunked, yet there's zero coverage on that, whether it's on the efficacy or the like the rate of spread, or like what's better and things like that. And
here's something you may not have thought about the whole situation. If it is if everything that we're being fed by the higher ups and the cool famous rich people, if everything they're feeding us is to be taken as absolute truth and fact, why can't you question it without getting shot down, without getting banned, without getting, thrown in social media jail, without getting thrown in actual jail, without getting killed? If
exactly,
why can you not ask certain questions? Why can't you just, make jokes and make, people were being banned or have their accounts suspended for memes about, Dr. Fauci. I'm like, you can't. I mean, who is this guy? Some kind of patron saint? It's like,
it's as if you're doing the same for fucking Khomeini, right?
You're right.
I mean, as someone who actually grew up, who was born and raised in a fucking totalitarian regime, the whole last 2 years, I'm like, I recognize these patterns of movements. This is exactly what it used to be like back home. Yet the people here, because they've never experienced that previously, they cannot they're unable to differentiate. And, it's like, motherfuckers, you are sitting in the midst of utmost freedom and comfort, and you're just because you're afraid and they've let you be afraid, you're so willing to give up everything to become like what I used to be like back in the fucking Islamic Republic of Iran in the fucking Middle East.
As short as life is, I mean, it's like, hey, happy 2-year anniversary of 2 weeks to slow down the curve. It's like, it just, and I mean,
and listen, you know what? The thing is as well that, like I said, I don't downplay the seriousness of the issue. But what is extremely crucial for us to understand here is that sometimes you just have to accept that a trigger was pulled. And yes, we should be angry that this trigger was pulled. We should be angry at the reason as to why this even happened in the first place.
Right.
And yes, you know what?
I agree. There is no, I mean, I cannot, argue with you in one bit. It's like, and then when it became so politically weaponized, when in this country it turned into California versus Texas, New York versus Florida, I was like, oh my God, why? Why is it about this? Why is it about if you don't agree with this, you're a Trump cultist. If you don't agree with that, you're a leftist libtard, as they call it. It's like,
but it's a detractor. It's a detractor to create division between people rather than actually confirm and understand what the source of this fucking problem was. And this is like, and now for people like you and I who kind of sit in the middle and actually trying to rationalize things and see where the problem lies, there's so much distraction of actually trying to bring other people into their fucking senses, of actually stop arguing with each other and look at what actually caused this. Then it's like it's too late almost, like it's a waste of energy, it's a waste of resources, But the thing that I want people to take away from it is that sometimes in life, it could be anything. It could be this pandemic, it could be worse things, it could be fucking World War III. We might have worse things in the horizon, and that is just a reality that we might have to deal with.
There's memes all over the place saying Putin cured COVID. But
he deserves like a Nobel Prize for ending the pandemic or some fucking dumb shit like that. But listen, the thing the point I was trying to make, before you continue, is that sometimes you have to accept that the trigger is already pulled. Now, the damage that now applies is entirely down to how you respond to that. And if you respond in panic, and if you respond by overreacting, the damage is going to be far more than the actual execution which took place. Whether it was deliberate or whether it was not, I'm more giving a philosophical approach here to life in general, but you can easily take that and apply it to what's happened in the last 2 years. And if you're going to live your life in fucking panic and easily just do whatever the fuck the news tell you, you are making the problem far worse than it initially could have been.
I think if you're going to live your life day by day, living in fear of what could happen, instead of, what you actually, you yourself can control and you are responsible for, but you are afraid of what might happen, as if you somehow have a crystal ball and tarot cards to peek in the future, which you don't. I don't think you deserve shit if you're just going to live day by day in fear of, especially a moral panic. I'm like, you really don't deserve shit, man. Like, I don't have any sympathy for you. I'm going to go live my life. If you get pissed, your feelings get hurt, so life's too short. I have, family members who are not young anymore, that their time is, they're in the twilight of their life. I'm going to go enjoy my, make good memories with them while I can. And if that hurts your feelings or upsets you in any kind of way, you can go block me. You have so much, go block me on everything. You're so cool. You got the power to block.
But the thing is this, man, I understand that nothing that's good will come easy, and as someone, I mean, back in Iran, I don't like to. This is not a point that I'm not bragging about this. Okay, this was just the
Sure.
shitty circumstances that I had to deal with. I, however, chose to pursue my passion, regardless of how much it clashed with my surroundings. So I obviously risked my life to a degree performing metal back in Iran whilst I was over there. You know, whether it was in
Oh, yeah.
our underground rehearsal place or where we at Trivex actually played Niavaran Park in June
Wow.
2011, which I don't know if many people are aware of that. And we actually we could have easily been fucked, but that didn't happen. But the thing was, we always approached it with the mindset that, you know what, the outcome might be really fucking bad, but let's do it anyway. This is what makes us happy. This is what makes us who we are. Let's fucking do it. And if other people had, if people could just appreciate the value of life and they could just maybe see that a little bit more, that, okay, you know, let's live our life. This is what I want to see more. That mindset, how the Western people responded to those terrorist attacks in 2011 and in November 2015, where it's like, you know what? Fuck these guys. They want us to be afraid. We're going to keep on attending shows and we're going to fucking enjoy ourselves, even if some of you assholes are going to be a threat to us. I want to see more of that mentality.
I got on an airplane on 9/11 of 2003. So obviously it was the 2-year anniversary. It was still very fresh in the mind of, America, let alone the rest of the world. But, I was like, I'm like, if they're going to try to do something on every 9/11 anniversary, they're stupid because they're just predictable at that point. They're boring. But it's like, and then also, I'm going to live my life. I'm not going to be afraid of, the flight path that I'm on for today might something. I'm not doing that. No, that's not how I'm living my life.
Sure.
Also, I think of the last 2 years, we've definitely learned how crooked, how corrupt, and how much it is now basically just propaganda foot soldiers. Western media is now. I mean, it is unbearable. Just the cancel culture, the rampant wokeism. I can't really enjoy. It's gotten to where, especially with film, I predominantly only like older films because you had the artistic freedom to express yourself. You could tell the stories you wanted to tell without fear of somebody getting offended. And the bottom line is, it's fiction. It's fucking fiction, man. Somebody took pen and paper, or at the time a typewriter, or now a smartphone. I don't even know how they fucking write their scripts anymore. But somebody made up a fictitious
a laptop in Starbucks, probably.
Who knows? Yeah, with looking swag, I'm sure. But it is a fictitious narrative. People have every right as a creative, writer. They want to write some characters that are assholes. They want to write some characters that are horrible human beings. However you measure that, that's their right to tell the story they want to tell. And I can think overwhelmingly most of the stories that I've seen, films, what have you, if a character tends to be, a racist, a sexist, usually in the end they get their ass kicked. Usually they get handled pretty well.
Yeah.
Is that good? Isn't that what we want? So, but people are now even trying to create.
You always have to have like a puppet. You always have to have a fucking scapegoat, and nowadays it's so easy to fucking become a scapegoat, where people don't even look into the substance of what this person was even trying to say. And if you fuck up a little bit, they'll just try and twist that and turn it around a whole other way, and then it's like, yo, what are you doing here,
Or when they are wrong, they have to feel good about why they're wrong. But people have become so not humble, not modest these days. It's so hard when you hear somebody go, oh, yeah, you're right. I made a mistake. I'm wrong. No.
Yeah.
It's either some people are never fucking wrong, or when they are wrong, they have to rationalize why to feel good. You can't just be humble. Oh yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. I seldom, if ever, hear that out of a human being anymore these days. But
I always say that it seems to be a case that people are far more concerned about being right than the truth itself.
How is that fun? Yeah, how is that? Why do you want to live life that way? Like, when you're wrong, you're wrong. Be humble and modest. Admit it. Nobody's gonna die. It's okay. But it really blows my mind when you hear some criticisms of, for example, older, and I do understand films tend to follow the political climate. I mean, I'm really drawn toward, the nowadays Hollywood machine, I don't even like embrace it. It doesn't appeal to me one bit. But
I haven't interacted with that for a very long time. I think maybe the last Hollywood film that I actually watched might have, ironically enough, been Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Tarantino. I think that might have just been the last.
What you're saying, Tarantino, it has gotten to where with like films predominantly, I only follow certain living directors anymore, Tarantino being one of them. It's like, I only trust particular creative minds who have overwhelmingly, they've not let me down in any way, or if they have let me down, it hasn't been anything too bad to where I have to, turn my back on them. But, comic books, same thing. I have to always only follow certain writers. Video games have become infected by politics now. I only follow certain developers. It's like I only follow certain individuals or certain companies that have stood by, hey, we don't care about your politics, your feelings, or this or that. We're going to tell the story, the narrative we want to tell. And, fuck you if you get bothered by, and it's really bizarre how you'll sometimes read editorials and opinion pieces that be like, well, this and that, Blazing Saddles, oh, there's so much racism in that movie. Yeah, but didn't every racist character get their ass kicked? So isn't that good? Isn't that what we want? Yeah. Isn't that how we want fiction to play out? Is, here's some characters, they're assholes. In the end, they get humbled very much.
That's good. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but you can't even do that.
Just a moment, by the way, Michael.
Yeah.
Do you mind? 1 sec.
Oh.
Right, man. Thanks for waiting there 1 second. Yeah, so you mentioned about you were mentioning about comic books and things like that, and it brought me to the final subject, which I actually wanted to cover with yourself. Obviously, I know you as one of the main people who works with ViaOmega Magazine. Which I actually recently had the pleasure of doing an interview with our friend, our mutual friend Brian. He interviewed Trivex for the magazine, and he actually did a pretty fucking good job too. So I'm looking forward to that one coming out. But I just wanted to know a little bit more about your background with metal as well. I mean, obviously you're wearing a fucking Bestial Warlust shirt there, so already you've got you've gauged my interest, and I like as metalheads we always like kind of gauge and sort of like not judge, but we sort of like you sort of like introduce yourself almost with the band shirt that you're wearing. It's like every time you choose a t-shirt you're making the statement, you know, and you wearing that to me is like, okay, I get you. We're on the level, I like there's mutual respect there already. So tell me.
There was my background with metal. Well, I'll start from the beginning I'll go back to the beginning, not start. I'll start with what you said about the shirts. I mean, I do agree with what you're saying. Like you are making like an announcement with the shirt you wear. And, there was a meme that I saw kind of recently, like late last year. It had two girls. I couldn't really tell what band shirt they were wearing. It was kind of blurry, but two girls taking a mirror selfie, and it said "girls wearing metal band shirt." And then some guy's head is coming out of the wall, like out of the drywall, like a WWE wrestling thing. And then it says 36-year-old man says, "Name 3 songs."
Name 3 songs. Yes.
I was like, yeah, that's not me anymore. Like, oh, what an asshole. But like, yeah, and like, in my early adulthood, that probably would have been me, for, the early mid-20s. Yeah, I probably would have go, hey, what's your favorite album of that band? Can you name this song? It's like, don't be that. That's such an asshole thing. Like, who cares? Like, if they're wearing a shirt of a band you really like, maybe you should approach them positively and happy. Be like, oh, hey, you're my new best friend. But don't approach somebody with hostility because you think they might be a poser. It's like, who cares? Move on.
Yeah, because they've supported that band. This is the way I look at it as well. You know,
and
not
even if
everyone's appreciation of something has to be in the same way. Obviously, as an artist, it would grate on you if, for example, someone actually listened to your music without reading the lyrics or without checking out your history, reading everything. But that is that happens to be the case. And you know what? At least for me personally, this is just me speaking, by the way. You know, like if I see someone with a Trivax shirt, I'm not gonna fucking quiz them if they know many of my songs or whatever. I'm gonna be like, cool, you fucking support what I do, and I appreciate that fucking more than anything. You know what I mean? So it's like it's the same when I see it with other bands as well. You know what I mean? I obviously the intentions always are not the most legitimate. We know that. Obviously, sometimes people do it for fashion, but
yeah, they got it at a thrift store or an older sibling gave them the shit. So what? Like it's perfectly okay. So yeah, I mean, as a early teenager, you know, and then we're so at that time, you know, with the hormones raging and everything, we're so hell bent, so determined to make an identity, to be popular and accepted, you know, by the other kids. We had this, I don't know how what kind of reach this network had worldwide, but in America, not only did we have MTV, which, you know, is a farce now, it's absolute disgrace now, and it has
you probably experienced it during the best era where they actually had like Morbid Angel and Danzig and all of them on there, like in early 90s.
Yeah, Headbangers Ball. Also a network though in America on the cable called the Jukebox Network, where anybody, it was music videos, and it was listed in between music videos, like they would give like a 900 number, some kind of phone number you would call in, so you'd have to pay, but it was a video jukebox channel where for like $3, I think you'd have to get your parents' credit card. I don't remember. Yeah, something to that effect. But you would call in and you would dial in the corresponding numbers of whatever music video. And everybody at the time, you know, I think it went everybody nationwide, whatever time zone, whatever city you were in, whoever picked the music video it would show on the channel for the whole country to see. So me in Arizona, I would pick, you know, at the time, you know, this is I'm not only dating myself, but I'm saying how far into Iron Maiden's history I got into it. Iron Maiden's music video for Tail Gunner off No Prayer for the Dying, I would pick it. Somebody 3 hours ahead in New York watching the same channel would watch what I picked. So Jukebox Network. And they had a lot of really cool music videos that maybe Headbangers Ball didn't play, or just what was cool is you had control to choose it when you wanted to. So, you know, Morbid Angel had Immortal Rights and Blessed Are the Sick music videos. Creator had a music video for People of the Lion. I know that was, you know, Creator's third or fourth album, Coma of Souls. But this is when I'm starting to, you know, violence World in a World off of Oppressing the Masses. You know, so this is Metallica's one, you know, that music video is, you know, legendary.
Sure.
Regardless of what you feel about that album and that band in general.
Excellent. One of my tops.
Cool. Very cool. But so I was just seeing all, you know, it was before the infection of grunge music. It was a few years before that, you know, that Headbangers Ball, that I don't even want to talk about, but minimally talk about that. But Headbangers Ball started playing all those grunge bands. I just won't say their names out of respect, but started playing all those grunge bands. I was like, this is not headbanging music. What is this? But so I know it was a business decision. You know, I know that you know their hands are tied in so many ways. They don't really. The poor host, you know, of the show, I won't even mention his name, but he had to cut his long hair short and bleach it. And I'm sure, yeah, you if you know what I'm talking about.
I'm aware of this because I wasn't around watching any of those at that time. However, I have revisited everything throughout like my early adulthood.
You've kept up with metal. If you've kept up with metal since the 90s, like these are all the shared experiences. But yeah, I'm sure it was a corporate diktat for the poor bastard. You need to cut your hair and bleach it like Billy Idol. I was like, and he's hosting Headbangers Ball. Interesting.
I mean, Billy Idol is cool as fuck, by the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, fucking Rebel Yell is a fucking phenomenal album, but for in the context of metal. And I suppose, you know, when you've got Morbid Angel on the same channel, it's quite different, isn't it?
If you're going to have a niche, you know, television program, you know, block, you need to cater to that audience as much as you can. I mean, especially if you want them to engage the show, you know, you need to appeal to their senses. You don't need to sometimes you don't need to diversify everything and anything. You really don't. So I ran into, you know, some music videos that I really found catchy and I really aroused my emotions, you know, Suicidal Tendencies, You Can't Bring Me Down. I remember very vividly loving that. Now I laugh, but I was like, hey, I was 13, you know, Judas Priest, Painkiller, of course. I mean, I'll stand there. That's the best album of the 90s period. I mean, you know, people say, oh, they were trying to do thrash. Well, so they did it very well. And also, you got to understand, they had just gotten out of their court case, so they're pretty pissed off at the world. So, you know, the amount of just aggression and just violence associated with that album, how dark it is, I'm just like, wow. I mean, I was 13. So 2 albums, I would say, really, really just changed kind of my life. I mean, it might sound cliche, but I've been the same person ever since for over 30 years now. Nothing very much has changed. So when I say it, I think I at least mean it, because it made me a lot of who I am and what I am now. Judas Priest, Painkiller, just, you know, seeing the music video for the title track and just like, I was just drawn to it. I was like, holy heck, this is fast. This is aggressive. This is just, you know, I can't. And at the time, you know, you couldn't just go on Spotify or YouTube. You had to wait for either the song to come up again in the rotation, or on the jukebox network, you picked it yourself. But, you know, when you're 13 years old and you don't have your own income source, it's kind of hard to convince your parents, hey, I want to hear a song. Can you call this number and let them charge your card $3? So I had to wait patiently for several days to see if Painkiller popped up again on the jukebox network. And also, in America, there was a radio station, it's long gone, and you may be aware of it, and I know it had reached throughout the country. It was called Z-Rock. And I think you can look it up on Wikipedia, or you can go on YouTube and type Z-Rock, and they even have somebody uploaded some old audio programs of Z-Rock to YouTube. I would really, if you're not familiar with this, I would definitely say, but they played, I mean, every city, every county has their local rock station, you know, playing the Eagles, playing Steve Miller, you know, all the overplayed Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd songs, you know. And, you know, those bands are great. Those bands definitely have their purpose and their history. I have much respect to all those bands. But, you know, Z-Rock played metal. I mean, they didn't touch the bands I just said, because, you know, why? Every other station's playing them to death. And, sure. And they metal, they didn't just play Judas Priest, Living After Midnight, Breaking the Law, the karaoke songs, the wedding night songs. No. They didn't.
Which are still good songs, by the way.
Of course, no, there's nothing wrong with those songs. But I mean, you know, when you know, Middle America only knows 2 songs of a band with 50-year history, it's kind of shameful.
Sure.
So this Z-Rock radio station, 100.3 FM. Yeah, 100.3 FM was the call signal. Yeah. They played, you know, wide variety of, you know, the thrash, death, you know, black metal at that time was kind of just Venom. You know, you could argue if the German thrash bands were black metal, Venom.
Black metal never really had any music videos properly, with the exception of maybe some of the mid-late 90s Emperor ones, and maybe like Satyricons, Mother North, and with the exception of those few, there weren't really many black metal music videos I can think of, not off the top of my head anyway.
I'm sure you're right, but what I'm trying to say is this radio station, obviously this was before the Scandinavian black metal scandals and everything, the media coverage. This was before that became a thing. I'm talking black metal, if you want to say Venom, Celtic Frost, Bathory, some of the German.
I got you. Cool. The good stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, yeah. So, but this radio station, no holds barred. I mean, it didn't just, you know, you didn't just hear Accept, Balls to the Wall. You heard, you know, other Accept songs. This was, and then they had a program, I think it was at 10 p.m. Thursdays. I could be wrong. Obviously, there are going to be people hearing this podcast that could validate that, but there was a later at night program that was once, maybe twice. I might have the scheduling wrong, but it was called Headbangers Heaven, and they played what we call extreme metal. They played, a lot of the bands on Earache when that label. I'm not gonna, they play a lot of the early Earache bands. Remember that label Roadrunner? They used to be a metal label before Nickelback.
Oh, that seems like a distant memory.
Yeah, but they played, a lot of. So what I'm trying to say, they played, stuff that for you and me now is commonplace, but at the time was not, and my 13-year-old self was not. So I have my ear glued to this boombox, and what do I hear on this Headbangers Heaven show? Deicide, Dead by Dawn, and I'm just like,
oh,
I'm 13 years old, ethnic, short, skinny, glasses, and I'm just like, I'm serious. I'm scared. I'm like, oh my, is Allah going to strike? Is Allah going to strike me down with a lightning bolt? Yeah,
I fucking love it.
No. I mean, imagine hearing that your first time, and you are basically a child. I was like, okay, well, this changes everything. Everything's no. I literally, I'm not. I swear, if you looked at me before hearing Dead by Dawn, looked at me compared to the person I am now, you'd be like, that's a different human being entirely. It did something internally to me. What I did, I had to, and it was hard at the time. You had to then go to a record store and look at the CDs and the cassettes and be like, hey, do you have Deicide? Where's the metal section? Where's D? I need to find Deicide. Okay, this album is just called Deicide. There's a, some kind of medallion on the cover, amulet. Dead by Dawn, Carnage in the Temple of the Damned, Lunatic God's Creation. What's going on here? So I'm like, I'm 13. I have no income. I pocket my lunch money. I skip lunch for 1 week. I do not eat lunch at school. I hide my lunch money from my parents. I get on my bicycle. I ride a couple miles. It wasn't too damn far, but maybe at 13 it seemed overwhelming. But I went on a bike ride to a record store, hoping that an album was still there. And yes, it was. And I bought it, the cassette, and, everything changed from that point moving forward. It was game over, man, game over, So it was like, oh, okay, let's see what death metal, what else is death metal? At the time, the Earache roster was stellar, Relapse hadn't really established, or Nuclear Blast also, their early rosters are phenomenal. They both now, let's be polite, but their early and mid 90s rosters were pretty phenomenal, So again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, especially even with metal now. There are some, especially labels, you see, and I won't say who, because, it's just, let's respect everybody. You'll see a band, a label make an announcement of a new signing of a band, and you go, oh, okay, I'll give that a shot because this label is overwhelmingly quality over quantity. Versus you'll see some other labels like, you've either never been good or you haven't been good for 25 years. You've only disappointed me. So, unless you sign an already, like, for example, an Incantation, unless you sign a name that's already historically significant that I really like, I don't care, So, and the metal landscape, obviously, over the years has changed a lot. It used to be, you went to the newsstands and you read Metal Hammer, Metal Maniacs, Kerrang. You looked at these magazines to get your source of information, beautiful full-page color advertisements of upcoming releases. And now, with social media, it's, I get people all the time trying to share bands with me. And sometimes I love it. Sometimes I'm like, wow, this is really good. Sometimes I'm like, oh, okay. Another band that puts wearing a costume and putting makeup on ahead of their music. Yeah,
there's a very weird thing about that. Obviously, like, your first introduction was like the first Deicide album, like the proper thing. What's weird about it is that, my generation's like way after that, but still I look at that and I think that's actually still one of the pinnacle points of death metal and extreme metal in general, So what is it about those albums, about that time, where everything was coming out, where it has somewhat actually still remained as one of the best still, you know. I mean, you can't argue, you know, like you mentioned Dead by Dawn, and you can probably see from my reaction, it's like, oh yeah, good shit, you know. And then it's like, you know, fucking
Little did I
what
know
is it, what is it about that, you know, that, like, I mean, you still discover so many fucking good I mean, I have a fetish for fucking, you know, death and thrash metal bands that you discover from late, for anything between like 1986 and like 91, 92 maybe at a push. And then they only release demos or like one albums that it's all analog recording, and they're all fucking good. It's like you cannot find a bad one. And it's like, what was it about that time that just produced sheer like high quality metal in the way that at least we like it?
I have my own perceived answer to what you're saying, because I've had the same thought process as you. There's a certain period of history where there's bands, you know, from the slums of third world countries only released a demo, and like you listen to it, you're like, holy shit, this is from, like the label Nuclear War Now Productions, Yosuke label. He's really, really good at just finding obscure, you know, former communist country, you know, third world slum death and thrash or hybrid death thrash pseudo black metal bands that had nothing, a demo at you know, on a Memorex Maxell cassette, you know, handwritten, that they release, and he puts it out, and you know, he hypes it up, rightfully so. He hypes it up, you know, as being something special, something amazing, and you know, then you go and you're like, I've never heard of this band from the slums of whatever, you know, Yugobakistan. Yeah, so you know, you listen to it, you're like, holy shit, wow. Like something about, I think, being, you know, predominantly male, teenage, early adult angst, living in the shittiest conditions under, you know, a totalitarian regime or just a very neglectful regime, created a lot of, you know, I mean, just look at what came out of, you know, the favelas of Brazil, the Cogumelo Records.
I was just about to mention Brazil. Fuck yes.
Exactly. Cogumelo Records, you know, is still around. Sadly, you know, I mean, look at how many bands on Cogumelo Records are amazing, and sadly, criminally, did not get the recognition they deserved. Yet Sepultura, you know, can play arena. I mean, they're. I'll be nice, but Sepultura is not the band that they were for their first three albums. I mean, they even had what is this now that they created? This called Cavalera. The two, I think
Conspiracy.
It's the two Cavalera. What's up?
Cavalera Conspiracy with Max and his brother.
Yeah, and I get some guest musicians, and they only play from, you know, the first album up until Arise. It's like, okay, well, it's a little too late, guys. Like, thank you for 30 plus years later showing your good material the respect it deserves. You know,
you know what? I'm actually one of them people. For me, I do actually appreciate the nostalgia. Purely because someone like me didn't have access to seeing any of those bands live back in the day. So this is the only chance that I will ever get, you know, not just me, you know, but anyone, let's say, for example, an 18-year-old right now is good. I know that might seem like an abstract idea, but that is something that happens, and I think we should be glad that it happens. But an 18-year-old now could be getting into death and thrash metal for the first time, and they discover Sepultura, and then they're like, oh, cool. Oh, can I see this band? Oh, wait, what? Oh, and then there's like, and then there's all of that. And then if seeing Cavalera Conspiracy or Sepultura itself is the closest thing you can have to seeing the band, then fucking great. You know, I think it's good for that option to exist. I know it's bands living off of like past glories and all that shit, but I see the positive in that. You know, I always see the positive in metal surviving and thriving in whatever fucking way they can. You know, same thing with Morbid Angel. I've seen Morbid Angel. Now I've seen it with David and Trey. And just as of last week or a couple of weeks ago, I've also seen it with David and Pete. So it's kind of like, that's probably about as close as someone like me of my generation is going to get to actually seeing fucking Morbid Angel, you know, which is like one of my all-time favorites ever.
I know Morbid Angel, you know, for several reasons, whether it's, you know, the one album that sounded like bad, Nine Inch Nails, you know, or whether it's him doing Janet Torturers. For one reason or another, Morbid Angel is very divisive. But, you know,
In the recent years, yeah, maybe, but you put the first 4 albums in front of anyone, even fucking Formulas and Gateways to Annihilation, you put that, like, it's just like they're fucking flawless records, you know, you can't say shit about them, you know, they're fucking great.
No, I love, especially the first 3. And then, of course, you know, from the letter D to F, you know, how they go in alphabetical. I can appreciate those albums as well. I mean, I absolutely revere on a pedestal the first 3 albums. What I was trying...
Even Heretics, man, I think that's a fucking super underrated album, you know, like, that was actually, obviously I might be creating a bit of like a age gap here, but that was actually, I'm not too sure, but I think Heretics might have actually been my first impression of Morbid Angel, which might be very weird to a lot of people. I don't know.
What I was trying to say is, when I saw the one time I saw Morbid Angel, and the one time I made it a absolute priority to make damn sure I didn't miss this show, because there have been a lot of times bands have come to my area and I'm just like, I don't know that I like you enough to drive to Phoenix, the big city here. If I want to drive 100 miles back and forth to see this, there's some bands I just don't invest enough care to want to make a whole day out of, and all that extra money associated with it to see. Some bands, yes, you know, quite a few bands. The one time I made damn sure I did not miss Morbid Angel, yes, I did have to drive, you know, 2 hours each way to see them, was, I want to say 2013 or 14, when they toured playing Covenant. Start to finish, took a short intermission, then played another second set. And it was phenomenal. I mean, it was, you know, David Vincent had the spotlight on him. The rest of the band was in silhouette. Just the way they presented the stage show was amazing. And of course, that album itself is amazing. But where I'm going with that is, you do know a lot of, and I'm not just saying them, nor am I even saying them in particular, but a lot of metal bands, you'll notice, especially the legacy bands that have a lot of history, they have, when they run out of steam, when they run out of ideas, even when they, let's just say, sell out and become a little too commercial for their own good, and they alienate the old fans who are like, well, you kind of betrayed us. They will go back and they will play what is generally seen by the population as their best album, start to finish. Operation Mindcrime, Rust in Peace, Holy Diver. They will go back and they'll play an album from their catalog that's seen as their top best album, and maybe that's it, or maybe they'll come back and do a second encore set. But you'll notice a lot of metal bands have to end up doing that when, you know, they're just, when they probably overstayed their welcome, you know.
Sure.
And Dio, unfortunately, you know, rest his soul, you know, legend. He had, when I think it was 2010. I maybe, and somebody listening can correct me.
Hell, they did that last album with Tony Iommi and Geezer.
Why that was called Heaven and Hell, not Black Sabbath? You know, I think we know why. You know, somebody's wife made that happen. But
But what a fucking great album that actually is as well. It's so fucking heavy. It's like, these guys are how fucking old, and then they're making this shit. It's like, what's that song? Follow the Tears. It's like, fuck, that is heavy.
And whatever, I don't care what you call it. Any collaboration, Dio and Tony Iommi is phenomenal. They're all 4 of those albums, amazing. I mean, they're unique enough to even be a different band. I mean, they stick out from the Ozzy albums night and day, and for a good reason. It's a different fucking band. It should be, you know. But Dio, the year he died, he was touring, playing Holy Diver start to finish. And he did have my city of Tucson, Arizona booked on the tour. And then it appears he died while touring, or not during the tour, but the tour was scheduled, and obviously he didn't fulfill all the dates, unfortunately. But Holy Diver, the tour of playing Holy Diver album start to finish, was booked at a venue about 50 feet that way from where I live, legitimately across the street from me. I live in downtown. Yeah, and they had it booked. I could have walked 10 seconds. I just have to cross one light on foot, and I'm at this venue. And thankfully, I did see Dio when he toured Lock Up the Wolves. You know, a very mediocre album. No, Strange Highways. My mistake. It was Strange Highways. That album, the first song, I forgot what it's called, amazing song, and then the rest of it's just kind of you're not who you used to be, Ronnie. I saw him.
No, but he was always a fucking legend. Like there's Dio's voice, but he had fucking personality, man. You watch any interviews with him? There's an interview with him that's really interesting, actually, for anyone who wants to check this out. Ronnie James Dio, I think it's from mid-late 90s. And I think the interviewer does this really interesting thing, which I think I'd love to see more of that kind of format of interviews with the face-to-face kind of interactions with musicians and artists, where the guy basically brought out like all of Ronnie's like different releases on CDs and vinyls and stuff, with Rainbow, with Black Sabbath and and Dio, obviously. And just he showed them all of them just to get his opinion on them. And I was so like intrigued by his response to especially like the Rainbow albums, and like he, ironically enough, okay, like I'm going to go out on a fucking limb here, but Rainbow album number 1 is my favorite. And you know what's interesting?
Amazing album.
Everyone always says the second one though, right? And then Dio himself said exactly that. He said that he pointed at the first one saying, this is the best thing we ever created. The second one is just some fucking musical masturbation, and I ain't got time for it. And it's just like, wow, what fucking, I mean, it's a great album, right? Like Stargazer and all them. But I thought it was really interesting. And that was like, I got to see a bit of his personality, and he had some serious fucking bite to him, like I was like, wow, I didn't expect that, but that made me appreciate him more as a frontman. I like that about the people whose music I listen to. But unfortunately, speaking of Dio in particular, even he died just before I left Iran. I think he died in 2010, which was really sad because I remember like listening. It was actually at a point where I was really getting into him as well, and I remember like going on like Yahoo's main page at the time or something and seeing Ronnie James Dio had died, and I was like, oh fuck you, like really, but it's one of them, man. You get the chance. I spoke about this to my friend Bjorn 2 episodes ago, and because he used to be in a band called One Tail One Head, really fucking cool band. One Tail, yeah. So I had him on the show, and I interviewed him 2 episodes ago. So it was a good episode. If anyone's not checked it out, I highly recommend them to do so. But and he made a really good point that it's like if the band is around, you've got the chance to see him. Make sure that you fucking do that, because you never know when that opportunity is gonna go away. And I think
based on exactly what you're saying, I blew off, in my adult years, when I was able to make my own decisions and I had my own income to make those. I blew off. I can't even count how many opportunities to see both Slayer and Kiss. And I saw Slayer finally. Shame on me. I know. I just took for granted that they would be around forever and they would continue to put out better and better music. I finally saw Slayer in 2019 for the first time.
2019.
Shame on. I know. That was my laziness.
Fucking hell.
But they did predominantly play from the first 3 albums, and of course some other randoms, like Touch Seasons a little bit, but they mostly played the first 3 albums. Like, thank you, this is exactly what I needed. And then this past September, for the first time, I think it's only Gene and Paul, remaining for the original lineup. I think the only ones alive. But I saw Kiss finally for the first time, and it was silly, it was hokey, a circuit, but amazing experience. I wouldn't, I was like, you know what? 2 of the guys have died. These guys are not young. I'm sure they have to take a lot of, we'll call them supplements to perform every night.
TRT, Viagra, nitroglycerin, TNT. Yeah.
Let's fucking finally see Kiss in the tail end of 2021. And I did, and it was amazing. So yeah, I get what you're saying. The mentality of, you better, especially, since we didn't get live music for damn near 2 years, it's like, and a lot of these bands are close to the grave. Just a month ago, like in March, it was my 3rd time seeing them, but I saw Judas Priest, and phenomenal, amazing. I mean, opened the set with one shot at Glory from Painkiller. I was like, thank you. You don't have to open the thing after midnight. You don't have to do that. We know you're going to play it. Just, they played they played quite a bit off Painkiller, and they played, they played some off Defenders of the Faith. They played Rock-a-Rolla even. I mean,
oh wow.
Yes, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And speaking of them, I did have the privilege, the luxury, my first time seeing them, because I had just become an adult. Like I said, you can dictate your life a lot easier when you're an adult. My first time seeing them was with Ripper, and it was great.
Oh, okay, wow, great. That's interesting.
I mean, whatever your opinion on those two albums are, and whatever they did to him,
but that's a very rare thing nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, how many people can say that they've seen Judas Priest with that guy? That's
Iron Maiden with Blaze.
They're not. They're even like similar to years, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Yeah, right around the same time. Both bands.
It's like mid-90s, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when Blaze did like X Factor and those albums with Iron Maiden.
Yeah. X Factor and Virtual 11. But so both bands went from, playing in gigantic arenas to playing much smaller venues. They didn't have quite the draw at the time. But, I thought both guys did a really good job. I mean, with what they had and with the weight they had to carry on their shoulders, poor bastards, they both did a phenomenal job, and of course the world was going to be against them. And, the fan base was going to be very divided about that. But it's like, look, I mean, Blaze is the Blaze material now he's just putting out, it's called either just Blaze or Blaze Bailey. It's really good. It is really, he's self-releasing it on a label, his own label. And, I'm not a fanboy of his or anything, but I mean, he's very passionate about what he does. And the material he's releasing now with just other random nobodies and on the instruments are really, really good.
His guitarist actually promoted the Trivex show in Manchester back in 2016, if I'm correct, 16 or 17. Yeah,
awesome.
Like
I've
not seen him since, but yeah,
they're not legacy names playing for him. They're not, big names that he can use as selling points for his material.
Do you know what's cool about him though? Even though obviously he's playing these small venues, I remember. And this is obviously, you're familiar with Niflheim, I presume.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. They obviously there's a whole thing with them and like an Iron Maiden. It's like it's a whole fucking thing. But it was really funny because, and it's really cool to see this as well, but there was a video that I think Blaze Bailey posted on Facebook or something. I think maybe back in 2018, maybe 17. I'm not sure when exactly it was, but he had just played a show in Sweden, tiny ass show, not a big crowd. Maybe it looked like a capacity of maybe like a couple of hundred at most. So I don't know. It looked small in the video. And then of course he's like filming the audience on his phone from the stage, and then he kind of points down, and then of course there's the fucking Niflheim brothers going like, like fucking. And it's like, and then I just said, like, of course, fucking Niflheim are there at that show with fucking Blaze Bailey's playing. It's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But yeah, now as far as thankfully we have our live music back. I'm just glad that we can return to some kind of normal. And yeah, I do understand that we didn't know what we were up against, but after not even too long, when the whole hysteria was taking place, we had to tell ourselves, oh, hey, wait a minute. So why are so many people, you said you yourself had it 3 times, and I don't wish for you or anybody to get it once, but if you can get something 3 times in 2 years and you're still as active and spry and alert as you are, and I know your success doesn't mean everybody else's success on planet Earth. I get that. Everybody's unique. I completely understand that. But that's also what the point is I'm trying to make, is that unfortunately some people will not recover and some people are somewhat bulletproof. So, we need to find some kind of happy medium, some kind of way to make sense of everything. But I think that the biggest wake-up call for everybody needed to be not fucking stay home and watch Tiger King. It'll be okay. No. Hey, change your lifestyle and habits and go fucking get healthy. What are you doing wrong? What could you do different? What could you do better? You're not always right about everything. You are a human being. It's okay to go, yeah. You don't have to go, yeah, but I need to feel good about why I'm wrong. No. Fucking stop smoking cigarettes. Just point blank, stop. Get some kind of exercise. I don't care. I mean, I do care, of course. I understand you might have some physical, medical conditions. You can they have those fucking things where you sit on the couch and it's bicycle pedals. You just pedal your feet, a little thing on the floor. You can do something to that effect. You can walk. You can do toe touches. You can do something. Don't feed me any. You can go in the swimming pool and, there's plenty of water aerobics type exercises, especially for people with lots of medical seniors or people with medical, but you can do some form of exercise. I don't want to fucking hear it. Okay. So the wake up call should have been, hey, everybody, get healthy and, stay sane and make the necessary lifestyle choices. Not, well, just Netflix is cool because no.
And on that note, and that powerful fucking message, which I can 100% get behind, I think that this is a good place to end the episode.
I agree. I could not agree more. Very
Michael,
good.
I very much appreciate you coming on to the fucking show, man. Obviously, it took a little bit of arranging with yourself being in Arizona, but this has actually turned out pretty fucking
No, I had a
great,
blast.
I think. Yeah. It's been good. Do you have anything that you'd like to plug to the audience at all? Anything that you want them to come and check out from yourself?
Well, my name is Michael Mahyar Hojjatie. I live in Tucson, Arizona. I am a master personal trainer and I also bartend. And I love both industries. I will only ever work again in the fitness or the bar industry for the rest of my life until I hopefully one day own both a bar and a gym. The dream is to be either sole owner or partner owner in both, an establishment within both industries. And also, I am one of the contributing writers to ViaOmega Magazine. Now, Cheyenne had said that I'm one of the main people, and there may be some truth to that, but the way I perceive it is everybody with our staff is equal because everybody has their own. I mean, we have amazing world-class photographers. We have great writers, who ask, questions and interviews I would have never thought of. So everybody has their own unique skill set. So everybody has the same equal footing with ViaOmega. You can go to ViaOmega.com and see more there. ViaOmega on Instagram, is we obviously update that a lot more than the website because it's just faster and easier than having to log into a builder website site. It takes a lot of time and energy. I do it frequently, but it's a lot. I have to do it from a laptop. It's just easier to get my iPhone and just update something ViaOmega related on the Instagram or Facebook. So please follow us there. And if
we've got an interview coming together soon as well, don't we?
That's true. Cheyenne and Trivax have an interview in our we will definitely release one more print issue before the end of 2022. Be patient with us. There's a lot going on in the world and a lot going on economically and supply chain as well. But we will certainly get one more issue out by the end of 2022. Okay, and Trivax and Cheyenne will have an interview with Brian from our staff. Great interview. I did read it. It was excellent. I actually made some minor edits just for grammar clarity. Very minor. I didn't change anything you said. But it's going to be amazing. So let's wrap up. I have 3 axioms that I live by that I would tell anybody who is who has been an adult not as long as they have been an adult.
Here comes the Zoroastrianism, I presume.
Well, no, it's actually I wish it was Zoroastrian. I wish it was that docile and pleasant, but sadly it's not. In today's world, you have to be a little more self-absorbed.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Okay. I already said you make rules for who you want and you break rules for who you want because, hey, everyone else is doing it. It just seems to be normal human behavior now. Go where you are celebrated. Go to a job, a friendship, a family association, a relationship with whoever you ever relate, whoever, I guess, whatever you have a relationship with now, go where they celebrate and revere you. Go where you are basically like oxygen to them. If not, find greener pastures. And also, oh my God, what was number 3? Why am I drawing a blank? I might need more caffeine. Go where you're something cool. Oh, yes, especially after 2020, it matters more than ever. Never, ever take advice from anybody you don't aspire to be like. Never. You don't listen to anybody that you wouldn't want to live their life or achieve what they've achieved and accomplish they've accomplished. You don't listen to them in any capacity. You turn your back and walk away. Yep.
All right. Well, I very much appreciate you coming on to the podcast, brother. You know, it's been a fucking blast. And as always, thank you very much to everyone for listening to the show. And if you enjoyed this, feel free to share it around, subscribe, all the good stuff. And thank you for supporting Iblis Manifestations.
Thank you guys for everything. Yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right.